Okay, so today we're diving into something that's, well, it's kind of the foundation of how societies actually, work from the ground up. Grassroots democracy.
It really is.
And we thought a fascinating way to explore this is through the lens of Choneikai and Jichikai in Japan.
Right. These neighborhood associations, these self-governing
So you
groups,
got to
like
have it
they're like the building blocks at the most local level.
hyper local. And you know what? Our listener actually sent us some incredible material that really digs into like the practical side of these organizations, like how they actually function day to day, from someone who's really been in the thick of it.
Yeah, yeah. Firsthand experience, really valuable stuff.
So what we want to do today is kind of unpack that, like really get into the structure of Chiraikai and Jichikai, what they do, maybe some of the challenges they face.
Right, the bumps in the road.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, what does all of this tell us about grassroots democracy? How does it actually play out in Japan? So let's start with the basics. For anyone who might not be familiar, what exactly are Chunaikai and Jichikai?
Okay, well, you can think of them as community groups,
Right.
really localized,
Right.
based in a specific geographic area. Like imagine your immediate neighborhood all coming together.
Your little corner of the world.
Exactly. And it's interesting, like scholars have tried to, put them into categories. Like Suzuki Ataro, he called Chunaikai district groups, and he put them under this umbrella of leisure groups.
The leisure groups.
Yeah, which, that includes other voluntary associations. And he contrasted them with like livelihood groups, things like labor unions. So it's like Chunaikai aren't really about your job, right? Or like essential services. It's more about that local connection.
That sense of community.
Yeah, building those bonds within a specific neighborhood.
So it's not just practical stuff. It's also about, the social fabric of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And then there's Nuthi. He defines it a little differently. He says, Chunaikai are a community organization formed over a certain district within a municipality.
Right, right.
But again, it's that local geographic basis that seems to be like the constant.
Yeah, that's consistent across the board. It's really all about that local connection.
So they're truly local organizations built by and for the people who live in a specific area.
Yeah.
Now, I think it gets really interesting when we start looking at how these local Chunaikai Jichikai fit into the larger picture.
Right.
Like, are they all just doing their own thing, or is there like some kind of structure above them? And our listener actually shared an article that kind of maps out this potential hierarchy.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So at the bottom, you have your unit Chunaikai or Jichikai, your like most immediate neighborhood group, and then above that, you might have a school district, a jofu, like an autonomous federation at the school district level.
Okay.
And then that feeds into the Koensho, so like the Ogura Minami Ward Autonomous Federation.
Right, right. So already we're getting into those larger geographic areas.
Yeah. And then at the top of this specific structure is the, OFU, the Kitayushu City Autonomous Association Federation. So it's like, a pyramid.
It is, yeah.
With all these layers of community organization.
What I found really, really interesting is how they describe these relationships in their bylaws and their governing documents. The article pointed out that that KPUR, like that school district federation, uses this term "ke" to describe its relationship with the city and ward federations above it.
Which basically means what, like linked cooperation?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it makes sense that, there's some sort of formal connection as you move up the levels. But then when you look at the GRE, the Ward Autonomous Federation, it's interesting what their bylaws say.
How so?
Well, their stated purpose in relation to the A2 isn't about directly cooperating with that higher citywide body. Instead, they talk about mutual close cooperation and friendship among the different school district federations.
Oh, interesting. So it's more about like connecting horizontally at the same level.
Yeah, like building relationships across those different school districts rather than, being directly controlled from above.
That makes you wonder, like, where does the real power and influence lie in this whole system?
Right. It's not immediately clear just from looking at the structure. Now, let's talk money. How are these organizations funded and how's that money used? We saw in the Sashi School District news, they mentioned individual households contributing like 600 yen.
Ah, so like membership dues?
Yeah.
To keep things running.
Exactly. And then our contributor, they had this experience with Chunaikai accounting back in 2021. And it really highlights where some of this money goes.
And raises some Some important questions about transparency.
Yeah, for sure. So they noticed that a big chunk of the local Chunaikai budget was going to Tuoi, which are like allowances for the Chunaikai officers, and also contributions to these upper organizations, the school district's social welfare council, or CARI, and the Autonomous Federation, the Chuaior.
So some of those local dues are actually flowing upwards.
And actually, there's an article titled, like relationships between Chunaikai and their upper organizations.
Okay.
And it really emphasizes this point, like those contributions to the Chodar, they were actually the two biggest expenses
Wow.
in that Chunaikai's budget.
So a significant portion is going up the chain. But the article also points out that despite these financial contributions, the financial reports of those upper organizations weren't shared with the individual Chunaikai members.
Right. So you're contributing, but you don't really know what's happening with that money.
Yeah. And that understandably leads to questions like, are things being managed well? What impact is it having? There's a lack of transparency at that local level.
If you're paying 600 yen, you probably want to know where it's going.
Right. Absolutely.
It makes you wonder, like, how much do people on the ground really understand about the finances of these bigger organizations that, in a way, represent them?
Yeah, it's a good question.
So that brings us to decision-making. Like, who has a voice in all of this?
Right. Who's actually calling the shots?
We looked at the Shinho Kaio bylaws as like an example.
Okay.
And they say membership includes all Chunaikai Yichikai members residing within the school district and their organizations.
Okay. So, like, everyone who's part of a local neighborhood association is automatically part of this bigger federation.
It sounds very inclusive.
It does.
But then when you look at how the General Assembly, the Sukai, is actually made up, it's usually mostly the heads of each individual Chunaikai and, like, committee leaders.
Ah, so even though the membership is broad, the actual decision-making power might be concentrated in a much smaller group.
Exactly. And that raises a question about, how much, say, do everyday residents really have?
Right.
Like, are their voices being heard and represented in these decisions?
Yeah. That's a fundamental question when you're talking about grassroots democracy.
Okay, so we've got Chunaikai, Jichikai, this kind of hierarchical structure above them. And then we have to throw another layer into the mix.
Oh, boy.
The Machikyo, or these community development councils.
Okay. What are those?
So they often operate at the school district level. And we saw some examples from the Blue Kosh, the Shi School District Community Development Council. And there's this article titled Chu Seldundor, which translates to Machikyo, are not resident self-governing organizations.
Okay, so right away, there's some debate about what they actually are.
Yeah. Like, are they truly bottom-up, driven by the residents themselves, or something else? And when you look at the composition of the Shi School District Machikyo, it's a pretty diverse group. Like, you've got representatives from the Autonomous Federation, Chunaikai heads, the Social Welfare Council, the DTs, even school principals.
Oh, wow.
Sorts of different people. And one of the articles pointed out that, sometimes you have the same individuals holding leadership positions across the Machikyo, the Social Welfare Council, and the Autonomous Federation.
At the same time.
Yeah.
So, like, potential conflicts of interest.
Exactly. If you're wearing multiple hats, whose interests are you really representing?
Right. It gets a little murky.
And then there's the flow of money. It can get complicated.
How so?
Well, money granted to the school district Machikyo might then be re-granted to the individual Chunaikai. So it's kind of like this circular movement of funds.
It makes it really hard to track where the money's coming from, where it's going, who's making the decisions.
Right. It's not the most transparent system.
Yeah.
So let's bring all this back to our main theme.
Right.
Grassroots democracy.
Yeah.
Given this whole system of Chunaikai, Jichikai, all these organizations, what are some of the challenges? Like, how well is grassroots democracy actually working?
Well, the sources definitely raise some important questions.
They do.
Like that lack of transparency, especially with finances. That's a big one.
Yeah, if residents don't know what's happening with their money, it can erode trust.
Right.
And make people less likely to get involved.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole decision-making process. Like we talked about, if the main decision-making body is mostly composed of leaders, are the voices of everyday people really being heard?
It kind of points to the potential for top-down influence within this whole system.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while the federations can offer support and coordination, if they're not accountable to the individual members, it kind of goes against the whole idea of grassroots democracy, where, the power is supposed to be with the people.
Right. And then there's the whole debate about Mashikya. Like, are they truly resident-led? Or are they just extensions of these more established organizations?
It can get pretty blurry.
And then there's this concept of demi-bushokiken, which is like a penalty for not participating in things like park cleanups.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. And some of the articles pointed out that this can actually discourage people from joining.
How so?
Well, it's basically a fee for not taking part. And it raises questions about, should community involvement be driven by obligation or by, genuine enthusiasm and a sense of belonging?
Right.
And like relying on these penalties for funding. It doesn't seem like the most sustainable or, welcoming approach.
No, it doesn't.
So for you, our listener, why is this even important? Like, why should you care about all these intricacies of Chonaikai, Jichikai, Machikyo?
I think it's crucial because it gives you a really, really unique window into how communities in Japan actually function at their core.
Yeah.
These organizations are, in many ways, the foundation of how people participate in their local areas.
Like the nuts and bolts of local governance?
Exactly. So whether you're interested in local politics, community development, or just understanding Japanese society in general, knowing how these groups work, their finances, their decision-making processes, it gives you these incredible insights into how grassroots democracy is actually playing out in Japan, the good, the bad, the complicated.
Right. And it helps us understand, like, where does the power lie?
Yeah.
How are decisions made? Are people's voices really being heard?
Yeah. And it makes you think critically about, do these established structures help or hinder more direct, transparent forms of civic engagement? It's a big question.
It really is.
Yeah.
So in this deep dive, we've waded through the complex layers of Chonaikai and Jichikai, looked at the sometimes murky financial flows, and wrestled with the whole debate around Machikyo.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
And it really makes you think about how democracy works at the most local level.
Yeah.
So here's a final thought for you, our listener.
Okay.
How do you think these structures and practices we've talked about actually shape the lived experience of democracy? Like, what are the potential trade-offs between having these established organizations and promoting more direct citizen participation?
It's a question worth considering.
Yeah. And it's not just relevant to Japan, right?
Yeah.
Like, think about your own community. How are decisions made? Who has influence? How can you get involved and make your voice heard? It's something to really think about.
It is.
Food for thought.